You're back on the block. Africa's most advanced economy is tiptoeing to the year-end 2023. South Africa is hobbled by headwinds from Eskom and Transnet, two of the country's economic nerve centers. There's also geopolitics and internal political challenges around Ramaphosa's presidency and the country's ruling party, the African National Congress, or the ANC. Joining me now for a review of the outgoing year 2023 for South Africa and a bit of a future-forward outlook is Chris Hart, Executive Chairman at Impact Africa Investment in Cape Town. Thank you so much, Chris, for making it tonight. We appreciate it. Now, let's start very quickly. We've got a time very short. So give me a brief overview of SA's economy so far this year.
Well, it's been a sluggish economy. It's really battled to get going, and I think it's reflected in the stock market, which has really gone sideways for the year. The peak was earlier in the year, and it really hasn't made headway. The rand has weakened from about 17 to the dollar at the beginning of the year to about 18.5 now. We've got the yield curve that is pretty much flattening, which is indicating that this economy is slowing down. There's been the interest rate hikes that have been, I think, towards the end of the year, basically curtailed. I think it's probably too much for the economy, but the inflation rate is a bit nasty. And basically, there's a whole heap of things that the economy is battling with. But the biggest thing is growth. Economic growth is not really there, and unemployment remains at a critically high level, above the 30% level, and over 50% for youth unemployment, which of course is unusual in the world, and of course a grave concern. And this has been a protected problem over the years. It has not been something that we've been edging down, and this last year was really no better as far as that is concerned.
So, Chris, if I just pitch in here very quickly, how much impact do you think external geopolitics have on South Africa's economy this year? I'm sure you've got internal issues around the ANC and all the wranglings within the ruling political party. But then you've got the geopolitics of Russia, Ukraine war, for example, where South Africa really stand on that issue. Currently, we're looking at the Israel-Hamas war and a few other issues around that, China and the US. Do you think this geopolitics globally did impact South Africa's economy this year in some way?
Yeah, I think there was certainly a small way in the Ukraine-Russian conflict. South Africa sort of more or less sided on the Russian side, and on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, the South African government basically fell in favor of the Hamas movement, the Palestinians, and although these things, I think, had a smaller impact on South Africa, I think internal factors are probably more important. I think there's a big concern in the ruling party that they could lose their majority in the election next year. And so we're seeing quite a lot of stimulus and populist measures taking place. So you may well find that the economy is being buoyed up by measures that are helping the consumption in the economy despite the high interest rates. But it's not investment that's being driven. And of course, load shedding is and water shedding and I think transport shedding in the form of Transnet is really not functioning properly at all. And these factors have really constrained the economy as well, because they're important links in the economy. So hopefully next year we see an improvement there in performance of those utilities.
If I will just take you quickly to the investment market. How did it perform in this year based on what business executives like yourself and others are talking about? What are they seeing as the year is coming to an end? What's their thinking about the year 2023 so far? Do they think the economy is down but not out? Are they in the money? What are they talking about? What are they telling you? What are you hearing right now?
Yeah, well, I think alternative energy is probably the boom industry in South Africa as we scramble to cover load shedding or electricity blackouts. And I think that'll continue going into the next year. I think the budget constraints are also something that's going to be a little bit difficult, because I think despite the slowdown in the economy, the South African government is looking at ways to see how can they increase the tax take with maybe higher taxes in the budget next year. That'll be extremely difficult for an economy also faced with much higher interest rates that have gone ahead. So we are struggling in that sense. But I'm hoping that that we will see a bit of a pickup. The gold price is at record levels, so we're seeing, I think, some sort of renewed interest in the precious metal sector in the stock market, and of course the weak rand is helping to at least shield the economy from international competition. And I think from a point of view of export-led industries, I think they will actually hold up quite well, and that includes agriculture, and that seems to be doing quite well.
So since we've got general elections holding around April, where do you see the economy in the new year, 2024? What's your outlook on inflation, the position of the rand? Goldman Sachs says the rand still have more room to run in the new year. What's your take on this, Chris?
Yeah, I think to my mind, we're going to see further rand weakness, right? Because the economy is not really gearing for investment. We need inward investment to help stabilize the rand. I think the populist measures that the ANC is taking, like, for instance, in national health care and a variety of other measures, basic income grant, rising tax burden with less value for taxpayers being derived from that, the South African being on the grey list, which happened this last year, is all not conducive for investment. I think there's probably going to be another investment credit rating downgrade, during next year that may well be on the cards because of the deteriorating fiscal position, as well as the continued stagnation of the economy. The economy does not look like it'll get above 1% growth, and the investment levels in the economy is not high enough to generate long-term sustainable growth.
Well, if we go back a little bit to Eskom and Transnet, two critical infrastructure for South Africa, the president this year brought in a new minister, created a new Ministry of Electricity. We've seen South Africa talking about new nuclear power over the next few years. Do you think that the government is trying to do something here between Transnet and Eskom that gives you some kind of hope for 2024 for South Africa, for critical sectors, industry, agriculture, mining?
Yeah, I think very much so. I think the deterioration in functionality in something like Transnet has become so dire that we're starting to see, I think you could say, a bit of teamwork coming in, that the private sector is prepared to actually kick in some assistance and help. And I think the government is looking to improve the performance of the ports in particular are in dire state at the moment. And I think certainly from a point of view of load shedding and the election, the government certainly would want to see load shedding reduced quite a bit through the election period. And that's the load shedding on the electricity side has been leading to problems on the water side. Water is becoming an increasingly serious issue. And anyway, I do think that with the election coming through, you will see an improved performance, at least up through to the election, and that will help to support the economy generally.
Interesting. Thank you so much. We really appreciate this year in review of South Africa's economy and the outlook for the new year. Thank you. Wish you all the best as a countdown to the final business days of 2023. Chris Hart, Executive Chairman, Impact Africa Investment in Cape Town. Thank you. Have a great evening.